Hey guys, what is up? Just No Freaking Way here, and today I'm coming at you with episode 3 of Kerbal Space Program, Just the Tip, and this time we're looking at orbital adjustments. So without further ado, here we go. Now today we're looking at how to change orbits, how your thrusts with the rocket affects them. So first thing I wanted to talk about is the difference between surface and ground. When you look at the gimbal at the bottom of your screen, it shows either surface or orbit. And the difference is it shows your movement in relation to the ground or the planet's position in the solar system. So in this case, you can see at the bottom of the gimbal it says surface, which means that the directions on the gimbal, the little yellow circle, is talking about where you're going in relation to the ground. While when you look at the orbit, it shows always where you're going in relation to the orbit, not the surface. So when you go out into the regular view, it shows vertical, not just up and it shows that the orbit goes, sideways and not just straight up and down. Now, in a couple thousand meters, what it'll do is it'll switch from surface to orbit, which means it'll start showing your direction in relation to the orbit, and not there it goes, and shows your direction in relation to orbit and not the surface, which you also saw the little yellow circle change position, and that means you're now actually going slightly off vertical as opposed to when you were going directly up in comparison to the ground. So here is a large orbit, and you can see as you go sideways, what it does is it starts to lengthen the orbit out over the planet, and what we're basically going to do is just get to the apoapsis, and we're going to create a perfectly circular orbit. And you can see that in relation to the ground, the farther we thrust sideways, the further away we'll land. And while we're still in the atmosphere, the apoapsis slows down a little bit. So as you can see, the orbit doesn't factor in when you're in the atmosphere of the planet. Now here I have a relatively circular orbit, and what we're going to do here is we're going to thrust forward, and you can see as we do, it's just a very circular orbit within, a couple meters of each other. So now what we're going to do is we're going to thrust forward, and you can see we're traveling to the right. We're pointed to the right. So let's zoom out, look at it, thrust forward, and you can see the apoapsis is now on the other side of the planet, and it increases. So when we thrust to the right, you can see the periapsis goes away from the planet, and that'll show you where you'll go. Now as we turn around, now we'll be thrusting away from our current position. Now as you can see, when you change your velocity, it doesn't change your immediate trajectory, it only changes where you're going to be later. So as you can thrust away from our velocity, you can see the periapsis reduces in velocity. So as you can see, if you thrust towards the periapsis, or the other side of your orbit increases, and as you thrust away, the other side of your orbit decreases. Now here I have a lengthened out orbit that's going out to the moon, and what I'm showing you now is what happens when your orbits change from being in a planetary orbit to another body, either smaller or larger. We'll go in from going to a smaller body, escaping that trajectory and going to a larger body later. But right now we're going from a large body to a small, and you'll see we'll catch the moon's orbit right there. And as you can see, we're using a version that'll tell you when we catch the moon's orbit. And so I straightened it out a little bit right there. So basically I just lengthened out my orbit until it was at a point where it would be caught in the moon's gravity, and you can see that's where it will be. So now we're going to speed around and come back when we're right next to the moon. Okay, so now you can see we're really close to the moon. We haven't actually hit the moon's orbit yet, but we're just about to. And you can see that's the path where we will be when we hit the moon's gravity. So we'll speed it up. And there, we just hit the moon's gravity. Now if we slow down our orbit, we can see that our path will go directly through the moon. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to thrust out sideways away from the moon to increase our distance away from the center. So we're not going to just fall into the moon. So as you can see, we thrust towards the way we're going, but away from the moon. And as you can see, that'll change our velocity in relation to the moon and where we'll be when we escape velocity, but it also keeps our periapsis above the lunar surface. Now as you can see, our apoapsis is invisible right now because we hit escape velocity before we actually catch it. So what we need to do is we need to slow ourselves down, because basically the apoapsis is just really, really far away. So as you can see, we start putting our gimbal away from our current trajectory, and we slow ourselves down. You can see our velocity is decreasing, and eventually you'll see the orbital trajectory wrap around the moon, and our apoapsis will come into view. Just give it a second. I like to do this slowly because if you go too quickly, you could end up with a periapsis inside the lunar surface again. Alright, so there's our apoapsis, and as we can see now we're thrusting away from our current trajectory, which is why the other side of the orbit is decreasing. Okay, now we're in a stable orbit around the moon, so we just fly around it really quickly, just so you guys can see what was going on. A nice little sunrise for you. Okay, so this is a nice stable orbit around the moon. About 100,000 meters above it. Okay. So now we will slow ourselves down. Now again we will face towards our trajectory, so it'll make the other side of our orbit lengthen out. Okay. So now the opposite side of our orbit is increasing in altitude because we're going towards the direction of our trajectory, and there you see we've just broken lunar orbit. And that's where we'll be when we break lunar orbit. So we'll increase the velocity, and there we go. We're back into a regular orbit. Now we slow ourselves down, go against the now we're going to turn ourselves around, so we're firing against the trajectory of the against our ship's current trajectory, so our orbit decreases, and you can see where we would have caught the moon again, and one more time. And now you can see that our periapsis is reducing until it's within Earth's atmosphere, and then we will be able to just fall directly into it. So it's reduced, so firing against our current trajectory. Alright, our path is now within the Earth's atmosphere, so we can just let it fall. And you'll see we'll catch the Earth's atmosphere in just a moment. 100, 50, 10. Alright, now we're back in the Earth's atmosphere. We're going to land right on the land there. And so that's basically a simple guide to how to change your orbits, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. You'll see a nice little fail here at the end. But please leave a rating, a comment if you got some suggestions or something I missed. I'd be happy to hear feedback. I really love feedback from the community, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please leave a rating, comment, subscribe, whatever you feel this video deserves, maybe even a favorite. And I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll just let this play out. And I hope you guys learned a little something from this if you didn't know already. So guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. Have a nice day. Take it easy. Alright, now so if you're still watching, the parachute deploys, and as you can see, because we're landing in the mountains, the air isn't thick enough to slow down our velocity, so by the time we hit the ground, we're still above 13 meters per second, and we crash and everybody dies. Take it easy, guys.